Hello everyone. In my spare time, I've been helping streamers with their PC part lists or doing technical troubleshooting. Over the years that I've been doing this, I have noticed that Streamlabs OBS is a constant problem. It's using way too many hardware resources, at least when you compare it to OBS Studio. In the best case scenarios of when I've asked streamers to move from Streamlabs OBS to OBS Studio, I noticed a 19% reduction in hardware resources. 19% reduction is a pretty big number for a switch in software. For that reason, I'm going to be recommending people use OBS Studio more. Even if you aren't a streamer, OBS Studio is still helpful for doing recordings to YouTube like I do here, or for recording your gameplay. It's a truly versatile software. Please use it. With that out of the way, I want to go ahead and go in depth with a little bit more of this by talking about hardware and some other things. To do that, let me go and give a recap of the encoding methods. There's X264, which is CPU encoding, and then there's NVENC, which is NVIDIA video card encoding. Both have their uses, and it all depends on what's available to you. With that in mind, I have noticed in certain countries that NVIDIA video cards are cheaper than AMD video cards by a factor of about 300. Countries where I've noticed this, just to name a few examples, is New Zealand, Australia, Germany, Sweden, Norway, and the United Kingdom. If you are in one of those countries, then I would recommend that you build using a Ryzen 5 3600 with an RTX 2060 as of when this recording is. Of course, that recommendation will change when NVIDIA Ampere and the others launch, but for now I'm just using this as an example to show you where I'm going with this. While you could use a Ryzen 3 for it, I don't recommend it to avoid bottlenecking and to ensure that there's extra space for other things. That's my whole reason for using 3600 versus a Ryzen 3. As far as Ryzen 3600 versus 3600X, I just don't see the 3600X as being worth the extra $30 to $50. The performance difference between a 36 and a 3600X is 5%. That's all you're paying for with that money. I would sooner reallocate that $30 to $50 that would have been spent on the CPU to another part that would improve performance. That's just how I would do it. Let's go ahead and look at an opposite case scenario now. Let's look at a build using X264. If you're in a country where prices are fairly even and you can get either an NVIDIA video card or an AMD video card for relatively low cost, I would just use a lower video card and go for a bigger CPU. Looking at current prices as of today, that would be a Ryzen 7 3700X with an RX 5600 XT. An RX 5600 XT is fairly comparable to a GTX 2060 in terms of performance. There will be some games where there will be a gap, but you'll still be pushing well over 60 frames per second, which is the target goal anyways. If the budget permits and you've gotten all the hardware elsewhere to squeeze out performance on those ends, then I could see about maybe seeing if the budget could fit a 5700 non-XT. That would give you a little bit more performance in that scenario. But the reason I'm doing X264 in that build versus NVENC is because X264, while it may not be as efficient as NVENC, there's going to be a lot more things for a streamer that's going to be using the CPU, so it just gives you even more room to work with, not just for the games, but also for the other stuff as well, while still fitting the budget. If you have a crazy budget that allows you to balance out both the CPU and video card, well then, great. But I'm looking at builds that are, I would say, 1,000 to 1,200 around there, depending on the currency. So, but yeah, that's how I would keep the cost pretty low while not going overboard. You have to realize that if you're going to be a streamer, you're going to have to spend your stuff on other things like monitors or other things. So I try to keep the budget in such a way that you're spending as minimal as possible on the computer and more for the other stuff to ensure that, you know, you're getting the stuff that would help you read chat or, I don't know, like give you the ability to do other things such as streaming from the kitchen. Some people do like sharing their cooking or meal prep type of stuff. So I try to keep that in mind when I'm doing the budget. So yeah, if there's a budget of, let's just say, 1,600, then I'm only going to try to spend 1,000 to 1,200 of that on the computer, so that the rest of that money can be allocated for the other stuff. But yeah, that's the short version of that. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about software now. Well, a little bit. One thing I want to point out with OBS Studio that does probably contribute to its ability to use less hardware resources is this right here, at least in the case of NVENC. NVIDIA has been collaborating with OBS, the open broadcaster software, to improve performance when using NVIDIA's NVENC. Notice the key wording here. OBS. It's not Streamlabs OBS, it's OBS Studio, aka the open broadcast software. I think that's a contributing factor to reducing its resource usage. So this only adds to my reasonings for using OBS Studio. While I'm here, let's go ahead and cover this real quickly. The graph below showcases the performance impact of a 1080p stream on a system with an i7 8700K. Intel has not been good for stream encoding for a very long time. That's AMD Ryzen's realm. I would be very interested to see how this chart changes if a Ryzen is being compared to NVENC. This particular chart will show up in other articles, and the wording that we just went over will show up there as well. So that's my reason for being curious. Though I am recommending OBS Studio, Streamlabs will still be around in one form or another. Some people like their follower alerts, for example. Well, you can use Streamlabs widgets for that. This article covers that. And that's just probably one of many examples. I don't know streaming all that well, other than the differences between Streamlabs and OBS Studio and how to set them up. But as far as the minor stuff like this, like I don't know how to walk through that stuff. But as far as setting up OBS Studio, I do know how to do that. So I leave this to the streamer because at the end of the day, it's personal preference. Some streamers want to use it, others don't. But anyways, I'll link this in the description along with this video and this video. That should cover a lot of what I've been saying right here. But for now, that's all I have really to say. Thanks for listening.